Hi guys, it's still extremely early, but I believe we have a hero of the week, and that is Caroline Lucas, the MP for the Green Party. I think this speech will and should be remembered in months and years to come from somebody standing up to the rising fascism taking place in UK politics. Caroline both here figuratively and literally tore Suella Braverman's anti-immigration bill to pieces, calling it illegal and immoral and what many see as an affront to British values of openness and compassion. Take it away, Caroline.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is an immoral and deeply cruel and divisive bill. It's one that breaks international law, it runs roughshod over human rights, and it shames us all. And I'd argue it shames especially those ministers who are deliberately and dangerously stirring up hatred with their vile and dehumanising language. So I am pleased to associate myself with the reasoned amendment in the name of the Honourable Member for Streatham. But let's have some clarity over some of the facts here. The UK offers safety to far fewer refugees per capita than the average European country, including France and Germany, and far, far fewer than the countries neighbouring those from the 70% of refugees from the global south have fled. And behind the numbers and the statistics are real people, with lives and hopes and families and dreams. In the words of the British Somali poet Warsan Shire, no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land, unless home is the mouth of a shark or the barrel of a gun. And the bottom line is this, that far too often there are no other routes available to those fleeing violence and persecution, many of whom have family here that they want to be reunited with. Locking them up is beyond cruel. The UN High Commissioner on Refugees has warned that this bill would amount to an asylum ban. Yet ministers simply don't care. They're even coming up with new ways to circumvent international law. The bill explicitly gives them the authority to ignore future interim ECHR rulings. So even if a case were lodged in Strasbourg, they could still press on with detaining and criminalising asylum seekers while the courts are deciding. That is a process that could take up to 3 years. But you know, this government doesn't care whether the policy works. That's not what it's about. It's about dividing and ruling. It's about stoking those cultural wars. It's about picking a fight with the European Court of Human Rights for cynical electoral gain. It certainly doesn't care about the human beings caught in the crossfire. If it seriously wanted to protect the lives at risk from small boat crossings, then it would back, for example, more generous family reunification rights, and it would support safe and functioning routes. I have a constituent whose wife and daughters are stranded in Turkey, having fled Afghanistan in August 2021. They don't have the documents to apply for a family visa. They aren't eligible for the ACRS. They've played by the rules for the past 18 months, and they are desperate enough to consider crossing the channel to be reunited. And yet government ministers have not lifted one single finger to help. And even those who are eligible for the ACRS can't make it work. Not one Afghan has come to the UK via Pathway 3 of the ACRS regime since it opened in June last year. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Home Secretary on the face of this bill invites Parliament to rip up international law. The only act of a Parliament that has some kind of moral integrity is to rip up her illegal and immoral bill, which has no place on our statute book.
Wow, I love this woman. Amazing speech. And I believe it's going to be remembered. Now, unfortunately, the bill went through with a majority of 63. So the Tory rebellion was pretty much nothing. And a number of Tory MPs have been grandstanding following the vote on social media, talking about how, yeah, I voted to stop the boats. Now, Caroline talked about some very important things here. The dehumanization of this and the rhetoric surrounding it, of course, is about dehumanizing people. It's about, you know, notice how they've talked about stopping the boats. The boats. No, they care about stopping the people. It's the people in the boats that they want the public to be angry with. But they can't say that, so they say, let's stop the boats. The boats are the problem. But it's all about dehumanizing. It's about Suella Braverman, following this, was talking about how these people are bringing drugs into the country. So it's not enough to say that, you know, we don't want asylum seekers, but to try and suggest that a lot of them are involved in some sort of illicit trade as well. Not the people smugglers, the asylum seekers themselves. But this is about creating division, dividing the public. putting, you know, the humanitarians on one side and the racists and bigots on the other, and allowing them to fight it out while the governments stand back and cheer on one side, of course. But it's a distraction. It's distraction from the cost of living crisis, a distraction from the problems facing the NHS, energy bills, all of this. This is, once again, like Brexit. When Boris Johnson would say, we got Brexit done, it was an attempt to distract the public from the failings of the Conservative Party over the last 13 years. And this is, once again, another attempt to distract from failings. Caroline also mentioned, and, you know, when I think back to 2019, there was a possibility, a slim possibility, that she could have become Prime Minister. You know, that there could have been a coalition, the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, Greens, the SNP working together against the Tories. And there was a mention of her becoming Prime Minister, a figurehead in a sense. But that would have been something wonderful. Anyway, but back to the point here. She talked about how, you know, France and Germany and other countries in Europe are taking in more refugees, more asylum seekers than Britain. But you had Suella Braverman talking about 100 million people or 1 billion people want to come to Britain. This is about, once again, lying in Parliament, lying to the public, and knowing you can get away with it because you have the right-wing media on your side. You have the talking heads and the commentators who support the Conservative Party backing you up so you can tell your lies and you'll not be held to account for it. But some people want to hold you to account, people both in and outside Parliament. Caroline Lucas is a wonderful politician, and I think her constituents should be delighted that she's fighting on their behalf. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.